Welcome to the podcast designed to fuel your success selling technology solutions. I'm your host, Josh Lopresto, SVP of Sales Engineering at Cloudlinx, and this is Next Level Biz Tech. Everybody, welcome back. We got some spicy, exciting stuff for you. We got glasses, we got tech, we got AI. On with us today, we've got Mr. Kevin Sheehan of Cloudlinx and Customer XR. Kevin, welcome on, man.
Thanks, Josh. Thanks for having me on. This is super exciting.
So anybody that doesn't know, Cloudlinx, we had Frank Wassenberg on a long time ago. I don't even know how many episodes that was ago, but we got a lot of exciting stuff to talk about with you today. And for anybody that listened to the previous episode, we had Brent Wilford on. We started talking about CX conversations and how this kind of stack is modernizing and where AI is plugging in. We're going to take that to a whole nother level today. So a little background on Kevin. Kevin has spent 25 years in the channel, seen every major wave. We were talking internet, UC, ECAS, AI, and now we are talking about commercial VR. Kevin, start us out with a little bit about you. If somebody doesn't know you, who are you and where did you start?
Sure. So actually started in technology in 1999, selling internet commercially here in New York City, which was about as grunt a door-to-door tech sales job as you can ask for. And it's been a graduating scale since then. Caught, the UC wave when it started in the early 2000s. Frank, myself, our other partner, Michael, we worked for a large TSD in New York City for about 15 years. So we understand the mechanics and the business of channel very, very well. And then in 2014, we recognize the upcoming wave of contact center to cloud migrations that were about to happen after doing one, big deal for Five9 at the time. And that was our impetus to jump off and start our own company because we could see what was coming. And in many ways, that's how we feel about extended reality technologies right now.
So give us then a little bit of background, right? Cloudlinx has been around for a minute. I think people may know that, but we've got Cloudlinx and we've got Customer XR. Tell us a
Mhm.
little bit about kind of how, what Cloudlinx has turned into, and then what we're going to really jump into some of the meat of it here of, who's Customer XR and how does this all fit together?
Sure. So Cloudlinx is originally about as traditional an agent in the TSD world as you can ask for. And to this day, we still do a tremendous amount of revenue selling traditional carrier services. It still continues to be a backbone of what we do. As I said, in 2014, I caught the wave that was coming. And up until that point in time, it had seemed that I had always been just a little bit behind all these waves. Internet, UC, SIP, did well with it, but always felt like we were chasing behind someone else. I saw the amount of revenue associated with CCAS long before that acronym was known to anybody in the channel. I will pat myself on the back there. I also recognize that my partner, Frank, had a real particular talent for building very, very intricate RFPs and very successful RFPs in that space. And those two things just came together. And I'm like, all right, this is a perfect opportunity to get out ahead of something and to do it better than anyone had done it before. That's pretty much Cloudlinx's reputation in the channel right now amongst many of the carriers and TSDs. And, we've never scaled to the point where we become an enterprise, but as far as being a boutique expert in a technology, I'd put Cloudlinx up against anybody else in the country in the CX space. Obviously, that wave, as all waves do, crests and come down. Most American contact centers are in the cloud and now are pursuing a lot of tire kicking in the AI space. And that's something that Frank and his team are now focused on. We strategically wanted to continue to try and get in front of new technologies. And we had an opportunity 2 years ago to buy a small company that was effectively game designers, and then take that that the talent that they had and move it more into a commercial space where we were building commercial applications and not zombie first person shooters, which I think there's more of those in the market right now. And it was very right out of the gate, it was very successful.
So how do you, we talked about this a little bit. We talked about the signals, right? Kind of seeing the next wave, when to jump on it, when it's too soon, when it's too late. What are the signals that you picked up on that our other TAs should pick up on to kind of tell you about when something is ready to go white hot?
That's a great question. And it's not an easy one to answer because you can miss a lot. But you always have to be asking, what are what are the tools that are available in a greater sense with technology that just haven't made its way down to the commercial channel? And the reason why I think there's a gap there is that decision makers on the client side who control budgets around either information technology or customer experience or what have you, infrastructure, security, etc. You know, they're judged by making smart decisions, and they're a little apprehensive about using large budgets to do something that's too far out. So as partners, I think it's our job to be on the lookout for what those technologies are and evangelize around them when we feel that there's a case to be made, and kind of give them the security and a little bit of the courage to start, not just kick tires but make investments. And that's literally how customer XR got off the ground, is that I really schooled up on what this technology was about, no different than we did with CCaaS and customer experience technology 10 years ago. And then I started going to our clients and looking at what they were doing. What are the responsibilities of our clients on a day to day? Again, we started out in customer experience, so most of our clients were originally in charge of the contact center, director of contact center managers. Those positions have now graduated to become chief customer experience officers. Your job is to connect with our customers better. And technology is obviously the principal way that happens. So if you look at it from that standpoint, sort of top down, you start as a partner, you start asking, what are new ways that you're going to need to know on how to connect with customers better, and also how to connect with your staff and employees better? What are the communication tools that would help you? And that led us to immersive technology and using platforms like virtual reality. And you discover that technology is way out ahead and it's waiting for the world to kind of catch up to it. And I think that's a partner's responsibility.
You know, entrepreneurs have taught me a lot. I used to think, the sales engineering thing, I'm not a sales guy. Like, I don't do that. That's not my thing. Like, let me stare at a screen. And then I realized, okay, there's value here in translating what people need versus what is out there. Okay, that's a skill
Sure.
we can help people with. Great. But I also what I've learned from entrepreneurs such as yourself is there's a beauty in taking a calculated risk because you're kind of led to believe that if I take a risk, it's got to be a hit. And my favorite analogy came from a TA of you don't have to be right every time. As a matter of fact, in
Sure.
baseball, if we think baseball, for example, if you hit 3 out of the 10 balls that come to you, you can make it in the Hall of Fame, right? So
Yeah.
this idea of just step outside just a tad and take a little risk. You guys have I think, uncovered and kind of stepped into how to solve the future of a new problem. So I love that. And maybe I guess let's talk about this a little bit. So this
Mhm.
idea of what is commercial VR, what is virtual reality? Obviously, you talk about people thinking gaming, but you've stumbled into this problem. What is the problem that solves for in the enterprise? Kind of what pulled you in? Walk us, take that a little. Let's pull on that thread a little bit.
Uh, great, great question. And it's a really interesting topic. So, virtual reality, and this is almost the prototypical first meeting I have with almost any client. When I ask, people in business, what do you know about virtual reality? I get the same response. 6, 7 years ago, I bought a headset for my kid at Christmas, and they used it to play Vader Unleashed. And now it kind of sits in the basement, and every now and then the kids, play around with it, which is interesting because the kids who were kids 10 years ago are now coming into the work world, and they understand VR because they grew up with it because of the gaming platform. Um, Palmer Luckey was the founder of Oculus, and an incredibly forward-thinking technologist, if ever there was one. He ended up selling that to Meta about 7 years ago because Meta wanted to kind of pioneer what's going to be the next level of social media. Where are the kids going to connect? It was a good attempt at saying, well, it's going to be virtual reality. So their intention with what is now the Meta Quest platform was to create a gaming platform that could also bridge to a new form of social media. That's where the technology has sat for the last 10 years, up until maybe about 2 years ago. One of the things that has happened that people have missed is that the technology behind the headsets, the Meta platform for sure, has gotten much, much better. So they have continued to invest in the actual technology, the processing power of this gaming headset. Um, it has now become quite advanced. And one of the things that I discovered 2 years ago is that it's capable of doing many more things outside of just gaming. And, you know, being a legacy telephony professional, you can almost apply the same reverse engineering to how the phones have come in the last 25 years. You know, going from the phone on your desk was the most important aspect of your job or your career, to now it's a mobile device that people don't even have phones on their desks anymore. And the mobile device has become more of a connection to social media and other platforms than it is actually for communicating with people. So I believe that's the route that these devices are also going to follow. They'll long be forgotten as being a gaming platform. And if you follow Meta in the last 6 months, they've effectively come out and said that's the course we're pursuing. They're leaving the their worlds program behind. What was Horizon Worlds, what was supposed to be the VR version of Facebook, they're leaving that behind, and they're pursuing more of an application strategy on the headsets with a particular focus on building applications for more pragmatic household uses. Um, so you can I've seen this dance before, and where it's going. The headsets themselves now have incredible processing power that allows for developers like Customer XR to build internal training applications, internal communication platforms using VR for businesses, and to great success. Immersive technology has a way of connecting with people and forcing a focus that no other two-dimension technology can achieve right now. So you take that ability to eliminate distraction and completely immerse someone into a communications platform, and you build business applications around that.
Yeah.
That's where I'm excited about it.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. I think it's just this, like, you're addressing this general opportunity of the Darwinism of technology. I'm a big, I got an EV early because I love tech, and it was and I've always been a car guy, and so, I had no desire to get an EV. I didn't care about whatever. Those things were not my priorities. And then I got in one of these cars and realized, oh my gosh, this thing is like 10 years ahead of the market.
Right.
Thing is on another planet. Oh, and it's fast? Okay, cool. I'm in. And but you think about, okay, that's not for everybody. And so then you think about how does a product like this, it's just product evolution, and it's how do you deliver the product that solves the problem, but also solves the problem that people don't know that they have yet and they can't live without, the hindsight brilliance of it. And it's I'll never forget this conversation. And as I was at a family function, big burly man, Ford F-350 guy is there. And we got to talking about, EVs and stuff like that. He's like, listen, I think this is great. And we were talking about, the Cybertruck at the time, but he's like, I don't know that I'm going to drive a truck that looks like it came out of Roblox. And I'm like, okay,
Sure.
the appeal is not there. But he buys
Aesthetically.
a, hybrid F-150 because it's not this like gigantic pivot out to something new and crazy and obscure. We talked about, earlier we were talking about like the HoloLens, the first crack at AR, VR. People aren't going to wear that. But now look at kind of where you are with what you've got with Meta, what we've got with some of these smart glasses. It feels like we're finally at a maturity level where you're able to commercialize these and you're not asking for this crazy foreign thing.
Yeah. This I've noticed in doing a lot of demos over the last year with people who've never necessarily been in VR before, that the stigma is much less than it was probably 5 years ago because they've seen kids using it. People are a little bit more acclimated to it. Um, Being a channel guy, I can remember very vividly selling against the idea of putting your commercial voice traffic over the open internet. I remember in 2000 selling against someone who was going to the first Cisco IP hosted phone system, internal, not even hosted in the carrier's cloud. Their own PBX was going to put calls over the internet and obviously selling traditional TDM telephony, just browbeating my client, being like, how can you possibly think that this is a safe way to communicate? That's the way that, as you said, the Darwinistic nature of technology seems to be, is that you're always going to have these early adopters who are pioneers around trying something for the first time. And eventually, as you said, you only have to get on base 3 times before you're in the Hall of Fame. So with the maturity that comes with a lot of experience in tech, I can absolutely assure you that that is what's going to happen with virtual reality.
Um, so a little reset here for TAs, maybe just jumping in.
Yeah,
This is about you, Kevin, have as a TA have figured out an incredibly unique angle and figured out the timing of how you're able to help innovate not just customers' environments, but you're able to have a different wedge in that others do not have, a different
hmm
evolution of a talk track of how to move the conversation along in these mid-market and enterprise accounts in a way that they did not think that there was a commercialized solve for, right? This is what I want TAs to take away of this. Of obviously, not every TA is going to be able to have a company like you started, but everybody needs to kind of think of their own innovative way in as to how they can evolve these conversations along. And I think you've done a great job of not only doing that, but stitching it together. So maybe what we come back to is this we've given this foundation of kind of what you're doing, what AR is, what VR is, and I guess tie it together here. How does this immersive experience connect to CX? Where does it plug into the stack? And what are these kind of conversations that it's walking you into?
sure. So, as a legacy TA, and I know this, we all have those logos that we've tried to pursue, like those big accounts that you want to get into. I don't think you can do that anymore by pitching the same thing over and over again. And that's very true in the CX space. The CX space now is inundated, not just with partners, but with new startups. You don't need a tremendous amount of funding to start your own CX AI agent. There's hundred we Frank and his team, they're regulars now on the conference circuit for CX technologies. I mean, there's 400 vendors all pitching an AI bot now, and they're all blasting their clients with the same messaging. That's not going to get you into a major account. I have never gotten meetings easier than I have had by reaching out to a major US brand and saying to them, what's your VR strategy? They're like, great, now I need another acronym strategy. Like, I'm barely getting my AI strategy together, and now I need to worry about VR. But you're always going to get a follow-up question. Well, why do I need one? Because they know what it is. It's not in use. And, most people at this stage understand technology is always evolving. And if they're good at their job, they recognize they're going to need to have an answer when the CEO comes in and says, how come we're not connecting with customers immersively? Or how come we're not training using VR? Because now you're going to start seeing more and more supporting stats, which are incredible, by the way. The amount of time and the amount of money that is saved, how much faster it is to train someone entry level using virtual reality. It's mind-boggling that it hasn't taken off more than it has. And it quietly is taking off. It just they're not doing a good job of marketing it. But that's if that's not the job of TA, then I don't know what is.
So, as you think about, I guess maybe let's think about timing, right? Like, so many of these things are so important. Some have been too early. We joked about some of the earlier tech that was just like, dude, no way, nobody's gonna do this. But what's changed, right? Is it just the prevalence of AI that's kind of pushed everything? The dust is settling a little bit. Like, why timing? Why is this so opportunistic?
Y- Yeah, that's a great point, actually. AI is sort of VR's kind of older cousin. Um, the but VR itself, the technology has I have said, has gotten much better, and you've had other entrees into the field. So this is the Apple Vision Pro. This is Apple's equivalent. This retails for about $3,500. So this is a very expensive device. But this, if you haven't tried this, you have not experienced media or what the future of media is going to be. This platform has rendered both televisions and, break my heart here, going to the movies almost irrelevant. You'll never watch a movie like you can in this. Um, the Meta Quest platform, which retails for about $400, the processing power that that device has now is four times what it was 6, 7 years ago. And as I said earlier, with that, the quality of the experiences have become much better. The developers, the team of developers who we have working for us now, who we purchased 2 years ago, these guys have been doing it for 10 years. They started out as teenagers playing around in VR, and it ignited a passion in them, and they're now much better at what they do. So you have a field of talented developers who have had time now to get really good at their craft. It's like any other technology, like goes back VoIP. When VoIP first came out, it had a lot of drawbacks to it, as the older TAs will remember. Now it's the de facto technology that the whole country uses to talk to each other. So with time and passion, the technology gets better. And that's what's happening with VR right now. What the kids are making is incredible.
So we always make sure we incorporate in some sort of probing questions, right? So
Yeah.
what are Kevin's questions to kind of uncover this conversation or just crack in through a different way?
Uh, well, the opening one is almost ubiquitous in that, have you ever looked into using virtual reality as either a training tool or a marketing tool? And the answer is almost always no. Why would I do that? Um, and then that is the perfect, that's the perfect answer you want to get from a client, because it gives you the opportunity to explain to them all the things that are happening right now. Um, a typical meeting initially usually goes with, let me give you a very high level overview of what is possible, and now you tell me, dream your VR dream. What would you use it for? And then let them come at you, and they always have ideas. Our first business engagement was exactly that with Batfitters, where we said, listen, here's some of the things you can do with VR, but what would you do with it? literally, I mean, they almost ran the meeting at that point. They said, we would love to be able to show potential customers either at home shows or in home appointments before and after of what their kitchen looks like now, and then what it could look like, or eventually we did this for kitchen savers as well, but at Bath Fitters was the first one, a before and after experience, where they could pick from our entire portfolio of bathroom countertops and finishes and colors, and experience what it would be like to walk around in that bathroom. And that's exactly what we built for them. It was not a complicated project, and they were overwhelmed with the success that they're having. So if you go to any home improvement show for where bath fitters are, you may notice that at their booth, and they're one of 50 bathroom remodeling companies, but they're the ones who have a headset that can show people before and after. So right there, it's not just an effective sales tool, but it's a distinguishing, technology that makes people want to come over and learn more. um, and they did 75% of the selling on that. All we had to do is build whatever it is that they
Yeah,
dreamt, and that's what we do.
I love it. Final couple thoughts here. So you talked about I think you said, I love this. I think you said AI is the older cousin.
Yeah.
So we think about the way that foundational AI models work, right? We know Anthropic, we know OpenAI, we know, Gemini, but we know them as these. I can chat with them via text. I can talk to them via audio. Oh, cool. Nano Banana, these guys can generate images and videos. So how does this evolution of AI, does it amplify VR? What do you we're not quite to the future. We got a juicy future question coming after this, but like where do you see these two come together?
Okay, so when our business applications really took off when we learned how to integrate AI into VR. Here's an example. Any training application, um, especially if it's a front of house training application, and sometimes that can be defined as building a de-escalation um, training app for law enforcement. Once you're able to embed an AI agent, make a character, which is what we do. We build the characters, we build the environments. And now we embed one of, I think we have 15 different AI platforms that we integrate with. And you can script out sentiment and obviously tone, verbiage, script out 12, 15, 30 different scenarios into that AI agent. Now it's almost taken on an organic experience where someone is being either trained or tested on how to deal with another person, and that other person is a thinking, listening AI bot. Now you have an effective training tool, because listen, you can do it 30 times in a row and have a different conversation with that AI agent. And if you're sticking to your training, that's how people learn. We have a whole program that's doing OSHA certification. So we have all 60 OSHA certifications now done in virtual reality, with many of them having embedded AI agents, challenging that person to see if they're actually paying attention to what to do in their training. And that's how people will learn. It's not watching a Zoom video once. And that's the magic that happens when AI and VR come together.
I love it. All right. Final thoughts here. So we're talking about future proofing the future. So this is going to get a little
Mhm.
crazy here. So if we try to look out just a couple years, what should we be paying attention to? What should we start to learn in addition to what we've already talked about? What we should already be doing, and if you go to one of Sam's talks in one of our AI sessions, that strategy to have those conversations. What's next? What else should they start learning about and thinking about future proofing?
Um, Not having a specific answer, because I spend so much of my time in VR. I mean, I would say VR absolutely is something that people need to understand. More philosophically, And this has served me well over the last 10 years of my career, and with how much Cloudlinx has grown. Cloudlinx now, we've made the Inc. 5,000 list of fastest growing companies in America 3 times in a row. TAs are overwhelmed with guidance and strategy from the carrier partners who we work with. But you can't rely upon what the big companies are telling you to sell, to market. You have to always be thinking bigger outside. I hate using the expression outside of the box, but you have to think bigger because every one of those carriers is they have a reason why they want us to sell certain things. Spiffs wouldn't exist if that wasn't the case. You have to ask bigger questions. You have to really look at where the world is going, and kind of have the 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 character in what you're doing in your client relationships to look beyond what is the next thing this year and look 3 and 5 years out always. And that's not an easy thing to do. It requires a lot of work and a lot of focus, but it has served us well because technology really is like a massive snowball that's just getting faster and faster and bigger and faster. And like to stay ahead of that in 2026 and beyond is very challenging. It's not the world that we had in the early 2000s where you sold voice, you sold internet, you sold WAN. Maybe if you were going to get cute, you start selling storage, maybe a little security. The world is operating much faster than that, and you have to look outside of what's coming. Things like robotics, for an example. I mean, that's going to be a major industry that's going to touch all aspects of business. And that's where we see virtual reality and immersive technology going.
I love that. And it's not that what the enterprises do is for everybody, and that these large, Fortune 10s, Fortune 50s. I'm just going to pick on Tesla for a second. Um, somebody that is amassed this fortune that they have done has not done it because they are dumb. They have done it because they are forward thinking. They see a problem. They are first principles, right? And so if somebody like a Tesla says, guys, you know what? The Model S was the means to the Model 3. The Model 3 makes it into production. Okay. And they just announced a couple weeks ago the S goes bye bye, and the X goes bye bye. So now we have the Model 3, we have the Model Y.
Mhm.
Who knows, whatever with the Cybertruck, if that stays or goes, I don't know. But why are they doing that? One, because they've gotten to this spot where clearly that is the vehicle that people want. The adoption has kind of come down from this, hey, only one person in my neighborhood used to have one, to now a lot of people in the neighborhood have one, right? Because they became more affordable, people understood it, they got comfortable with it. So then for what? So when you hear that it's being done also to make way for the Fremont and other factories to produce the Optimus robot. This thing that 5 years ago you'd have been like, yeah, right, this is a sci-fi movie. This dude is out of his mind. And you can still believe that Elon is out of his mind. That's fine. But what you have to pay attention to is what's happening and where capital is being allocated. And so to these points of never would have thought that we would have autonomous vehicles, never would have thought that we would have, augmented reality headsets, never would have thought that we will have robots. Who knows what we're going to have here in the
Yeah.
next couple of years, right? Robots in the channel, whatever. I don't think we're that far off. Like I will not promise things before they are light years away to this channel. I don't see those things as far off.
Well, it's amazing how we don't learn from past technology adoption, that we still have a little bit of this almost 20th century way of looking at, like, well, that's never going to happen. Flying cars, come on. um like it ends up always happening, and often within our lifetimes. I had a chance to go out to Cupertino and meet with one of the top executives at Apple, in their immersive division. um and I went in like a legacy TI guy, thinking that I was going to be, oh, like I'm boots on the ground in the trenches. I'm going to point out all the things you've done wrong with the Apple Vision Pro. So, and I said, I love it. I use it daily, actually, myself personally. But what were you guys thinking releasing a $3,700 massive headset thinking that people were going to run out and buy them? And they laughed me out of the room. They're like, well, you may not have noticed this about Apple, but we tend to be operating 10 years ahead of where we think technology is going to go. We heard the same thing when the Macintosh computer came out. Like, who would spend all this money and have this big machine in their home? Technology gets adopted when initially it's put out there, and then the early adopters chase it, try it out, see what works. They wanted to see what developers like Customer XR would make for it. And we've actually made some really incredible apps for the Apple Vision Pro, because the next version comes and now all those apps translate to that next version. And then the next version after that comes. And that's how, as you said earlier, sort of technological Darwinism occurs, is that it's technology pulling us along. And you have to have partners and companies who are that forward thinking. Otherwise, we go nowhere. I expect to see a flying car in my lifetime, by the way.
Love it. Look, I mean, it's you got these Joby Aviation guys, you got these eVTOLs, they're buying, landing spaces. I mean, it's crazy. It's real, and it's just a matter. It seems like just like anything, just like any investment thesis. It's how capital intensive does it need to be? How long until we have mainstream adoption? And is it about product one, or is product one really about product two? And what's the means to what end? That's it. And just balancing that with capital cycles, man.
And now just kind of bringing it back to sort of a TA conversation as far as why would I be looking at virtual reality right now beyond wanting to be cool and forward thinking. As a pragmatic answer to that, there's a tremendous amount of revenue that is being made right now by building immersive experiences for commercial clients. As I said, on the training side, if you're a TA and you have a fast casual or quick service restaurant as a client, or any major franchise as a client, the cost savings and time savings from training staff in virtual reality is staggering, staggering. Of all the verticals that we've had, QSRs are the ones who've almost been jumping into the boat asking us to build applications. A very heavy upfront application build cost, which we're paying out in line with what normal carrier partners are paying out. And then more importantly, there's a monthly license subscription on every single headset that goes out. We have to maintain, obviously, a lockdown private headset and push updates. There's a monthly recurring charge that goes along with that. So what we've been seeing with a lot of retailers or quick service restaurants is that there's usually a small footprint of locations that first do a proof of concept. With success, then that goes out to thousands of locations. To me, that's no different than unified communications and that model. And that revenue model exists right now. And it's a revenue stream that no one realizes is there.
I love it. I love your innovation. Love your edge. Keep forward thinking. Good stuff, man. I
Thanks very
appreciate
much.
you coming on. This
Yeah.
has been fun. We could go for a long time on this. We're both passionate.
Yeah, absolutely. And for what it's worth, we're super excited about, partnering with Telarus and pushing this new technology out to your community and being part of that. Telarus has been a fantastic business partner to Cloudlinx over the years. And we're super excited to see what the next 10 years of that partnership is going to look like.
Love it. Okay. All right, everybody. As always, don't forget wherever you're coming to us from, Apple, Spotify, these drop every Wednesday. So be sure to go subscribe so you get these automatically as soon as they go out. And that wraps us up for today. So I'm your host, Josh Lopresto, SVP of Sales Engineering here at Telarus. We've got Kevin Sheehan of Cloudlinx and Customer XR. Until next time, thanks, everybody.
Next.